Welcome and welcome again. Yes, we are in Leviticus 25. We are talking about the laws regarding the sabbatical year and the jubilee year. Yes, the sabbatical year and the jubilee year. The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land I am giving you, the land shall observe a Sabbath for the Lord. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard, and gather in their yield. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest, or gather the grapes of your unpruned vines. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. You may eat what the land yield during its Sabbath. You, your male and female slaves, your hired and your bound Hebrew, who live with you, for your livestock also, and for the wild animals in your land, all its yield shall be for food." Verse 8, you shall count off 7 weeks of year, 7 times 7 years, so that the period of 7 weeks of years give 49 years. Then you shall have the trumpet sound loud on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement. You shall have the trumpet sounded throughout all your land, and you shall hallow the 15th year, and you shall proclaim liberty throughout the land to all the inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. You shall return, every one of you, to your property, and every one of you to your family. 11. That 15th year you shall be a jubilee. That 15th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow or reap the aftergrowth, or harvest the unpruned vines, for it is a jubilee. It shall be holy for you. You shall eat only what you yield itself produce. 13. In this year of jubilee you shall return, every one of you, to your property. When you make a sale to your neighbor, or buy from your neighbor, you shall not cheat one another. 15. When you buy from your neighbors, you shall pay only for the number of years since the jubilee. The seller shall charge you only for the remaining crop year. If the year are more, you shall increase the price. If the year are fewer, you shall diminish the price. For it is a certain number of harvests that are being sold to you. You shall not cheat one another, but you shall fear your God, for I am the Lord your God. 18. You shall observe my statutes and faithfulness, keep my ordinance, so that you may live on the land securely. The land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill and live on it securely. Should you ask, what shall we eat in the 7th year, if we may not sow or gather in our crop? I will order my blessing for you in the 6th year, so that it will yield a crop for 3 years. When you sow in the 18th year, you will be eating from the old crop until the 9th year. When it produce comes in, you shall eat the old. The land shall not be sold and perpetuity. For the land is mine. With me you are but alien and tenants. Throughout the land that you hold, you shall provide for the redemption of the land. 25. If anyone of your kin falls into difficulty and sell a piece of property, then the next of kin shall come and redeem what the relative has sold. If the person has no one to redeem it, but then prospers and finds sufficiency means to do so, the year since its sale shall be computed, and the difference shall be refunded to the person to whom it was sold, and the property shall be returned. 28. But if there are no sufficient means to recover it, what was sold shall remain with the purchaser until the year of Jubilee. And the Jubilee it shall be released, and the property shall be returned. 29. If anyone sell a dwelling house in a well-walled city, it may be redeemed until a year has elapsed since its sale. The right of redemption shall be 1 year. 30. If it is not redeemed before a full year has elapsed, a house that is in a walled city shall pass in perpetuity to the purchaser. Throughout the generation it shall not be released in the Jubilee. But houses in village that have no walls around them shall be classed as open country. They may be redeemed, and they shall be released in the Jubilee. 32. As for the cities of the Levites shall forever have the rights of redemption of the houses and the cities belonging to them. 33. Such properties as may be redeemed from the Levite's house, sold in a city belonging to them, shall be released in the Jubilee, because the house and the city of the Levites are their possession among the people of Israel. But the open land around them, around their cities, may not be sold, but that is the possession for all time. For that is their possession for all time. 35. If any of your kin falls into difficulty and become dependent on you, you shall support them. They shall live with you as though resident alien. Do not take interest in advance or otherwise make a profit from them, but fear your God. Let them live with you. You shall not lend them your money at interest taken in advance, or provide them food at a profit. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan to be your God. 39. If any who are dependent on you become so impoverished that they sell themselves to you, you shall not make them serve as slaves, but they shall remain with you as hired or bond labor. They shall serve with you until the year of the Jubilee. Then they and their children and them shall be freed from your authority. They shall go back to their own family and return to their ancestral property. For they are my servant, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slave or sold. 43. You shall not rule over them with harshness, but shall fear your God. As for the male and female slave, whom you may have, it is from the nations around you, that you may acquire males and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the alien residing with you, and from their families that are with you, who have been born in your land, and they may be your property. 46. You may keep them as possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves, but as for your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over the other with harshness. 47. If resident alien among you prosper, and if any of your kin falls into difficulty with one of them, and sell themselves as an alien, or to a branch of the alien family, after they have sold themselves, they shall have the right of redemption. One of their brothers may redeem them, or their uncles or their uncle's son may redeem them, or anyone of their family who is of their own flesh may redeem them. Or if they prosper, they may redeem themselves. 50. They shall compute with the purchaser the total from the year when they sold themselves to the alien until the jubilee year. The price of the sale shall be applied to the number of years. The time they were with the owner shall be rated as the time of a hired laborer. 51. If many years remain, they shall pay for their redemption in proportion to the purchase price. And if fewer years remain until the jubilee year, they shall compute though according to the years involved, they shall make payment for their redemption. 53. As a laborer hired by the year, they shall be under the alien authority, who shall not, however, rule with harshness over them in your sight. And if they have not been redeemed in any of these years, they and their children shall then they and their children with them shall go free in the jubilee year. 55. For to me the people of Israel are servant. They are my servant, whom I brought out from the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Okay. Let's continue with the explanation of 25. Laws regarding the sabbatical year and the jubilee year. 25 have 55 verses in it. Let me give a rough explanation of one of the first 55 verses, and then I'm going details about the verses. Okay, the basic principle behind these laws is that the land is ultimately owned by God. In verse 23. Verse 23 said, "The land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine. With me you are but alien and tenant." Okay? The land belongs to God. Humans have only temporary possession of it, though humans should avoid excessive economic exploitation of the land and or other people. Okay? Similar laws about the periodic release of land, slave, and debt occurs in Exodus 21, verse 2 to 6, Exodus 23, verse 10 to 11, and Deuteronomy 15, 1 to 18. So laws that's similar to the release of slaves or land or debt You could find it. Let me say it one more time to you. Exodus 21, verse 2 and 6. Verse 2, 2, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exodus 23, verse 10 and 11. And Deuteronomy 15, verse 1 all the way down to verse 18. Talks about that. Okay? So God is saying the land is his, everything is his, so he just letting you borrow it, so don't go overboard with the land. Okay? Now, 25. Verse 1 to 24. Quick review of that. Starting with verse 1. Verse 1 said, the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron on Mount Sinai, saying, okay? Let me explain what God was saying to Moses, starting with verse 2 to 7. Okay? The Sabbath, as we all know, the Sabbath is always discussed. The Lord, verse 2, talk about the Sabbath to keep it holy. You must keep it holy. That's God said that so many times throughout Genesis all the way down to the verse that we are doing right now. So therefore it's very important to keep it holy. Typically refers the Sabbath is typically refers to the 7th day of the week, a day of rest from work, which is explained in Exodus 20 verse 8 to 11. Okay, Exodus 20 verse 8 to 11. Keep those verse, because we talk about the Sabbath. That verse come up a lot in the Bible as references. So keep it. Even while you continue reading, the Lord saying, "Observe the Sabbath, observe the Sabbath, for I'm the Lord. Keep it holy." Stuff like that. It goes right back to Exodus 20, verse 8 to 11, as your reference. In addition to chapter 25 in Leviticus, verse 2. Okay? Here the term applies to every 7th year, not just every Saturday, last of the week, but this applies to every 7th year. In verse 4, verse 4 said, "But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. You shall not sow your field upon your vineyard. You shall not do any farm work during that time. The land rests by having no crop planted on it." Don't plant nothing on it, right? You plant your whatever you planting. You plant for 6 years. Leave the land alone the 7 years, so it could rest. It's also good for the land. You get a better harvest the next year, the next time you plant on it anyway, if you let it rest 1 year. Now verse 8 to 12, which is the Jubilee year. The Jubilee year. Verse 8 to 12 talk about the Jubilee year, the time. You shall count off 7 weeks of year, 7 times 7 years, so that the period of 7 weeks of year gives 49 years. Then you shall have the trumpet sound loud, and on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement, you shall have the trumpet sound throughout all your land. And you shall hallow the 15th year, and you shall proclaim liberty throughout the land to all the inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. There shall be a jubilee for you. You shall return, every one of you, to your property, and every one of you to your family. That 15th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow or reap the aftergrowth, or harvest the unpruned vines, for it is a jubilee. It shall be holy for you. You shall eat only what you yield itself produce. Yes. Okay? The Jubilee year. the Jubilee year talks from verse 8 to 12. Okay, but it's mostly concentrated on verse 11 and 12. Okay, occurs after every 7 year in verse 8, and in other words, every 15th year, which is in verse 10, the return of your property and to your family presuppose a return to the original allocation of the plot of land and Canaan assigned to each Israelite tribe, Israelite clan and family. Right? This allocation of land occurs after the conquest of Canaan and Joshua 13 to 22. In the book of Joshua 13 to the book of 13 to 22. Okay? The function of the law is both periodic and economic equalization and support of the clan and family social structure. Okay? Let me read that again for you. The function of the clan is both periodic economic equalization and support of the clan and family social structure. Alright? Okay. Now, let's review verse 13 to 17. Verse 13 and 17, land may be bought and sold as a temporary release between each Jubilee year. However, the buyer knows that the land will revert to the original owner in the 15th year of the Jubilee. Okay? You could use the land, but it must be returned back to the original owner on the 15th year. Okay. 23. Let's get down to verse 23. The ultimate divine ownership of the land is the theological presupposition behind the sabbatical and jubilee law of release. And perpetuity means perpetuity means forever. In other words, every sale of land must be only temporary so that its ownership may periodically revert to the original owner. In other words, no land will be ever sold to an outsider forever. It will always stay with the original owner. Okay? Redemption. Throughout the land you hold, you shall provide for the redemption of the land. Yes? Redemption involves a relative or family member taking back land or person that originally belonged to the family. If you look up with me at verse 25, if any one of your kin falls into difficulties or sell a piece of property, then the next of kin shall come and redeem what the relative has sold. Okay? So if you saw yourself as a modern day, they still have slavery. It called work. So if you accidentally sell yourself out of hardship. Okay? Your family can come and buy you out. And in another word, let me make it simple. Okay. If you accidentally put yourself into debt, and the debt collector is knocking at your door, right? When you're in debt, you can't sleep. You gotta work. Okay? You gotta work no matter what, because you live in debt. But if your family member have the funds to bail you out by paying your debt, so it's like the president did. He paid the motor company's debt. He paid the airline industry's debt. He paid everybody's debt. No, especially those who got money. He paid their debts, and because you want to bail them out, right? The same way with family. If you have a family who actually sell themselves their debt, you could go and redeem them by paying off their debt. Okay? Or they sell their land. You could go and help them out. Yeah. Let's continue on. Let's continue on with 25. 25 to 55. Review of that one. These laws deals with four progressively more serious economic situation of need. The first one, the need to sell off a part of the family's land or holding, was talked on verse 25 all the way down to verse 34. Okay? The need to sell off a part of the family land or holding, verse 25 to verse 34. Now, the second law come with the need to become dependent on a fellow Israelites. It was discussed on 35 to verse 38. Please read that. The third one is the need to sell oneself as a hired laborer to a fellow Israelites. Start with verse 39 all the way down to verse 46. And 4, the need to sell oneself as a hired laborer as a resident alien or non-alien was discussed on verse 47 down to verse 55. So these are the four laws that deal with these laws deal with four progressively more serious economic situation of need. These are the four major need economic that the people may have that cause them to be in debt. Okay? On the right of redemption, which was discussed in verse 29 and also verse 32. Okay, 29 and 32, right of redemption. Let me read that. If anyone sell a dwelling house in the walled city, it shall be redeemed only a year, until a year has elapsed since it sell. The right of redemption shall be 1 year. Okay, 32. As for the cities of the Levites shall forever have the right of redemption of the houses in the cities belonging to them. Okay. Let's come with me to verse 24 for a minute. Verse 24. Oh, verse 24, 23. 24. Throughout the land that you hold, you shall provide for the redemption of the land. Throughout the land that you hold, you shall provide for the redemption of the land. So whatever land you end up in, you will do the redemption of the land. Okay. Um. Let me. Okay. So, in other words, redemption involves a relative or family members taking back land or person that originally belonged to the family. Okay? Oh. Says the Levites, which was a priestly tribe within Israel, did not receive an allotment of land as did the other tribe. They received instead a number of cities throughout Israel. If you look in Numbers 18, verse 20 to 24, and also Numbers 35, verse 1 to 8, they talk about the land that they received, the items that they received. Okay? The basic theological conviction behind the law in verse 25 to verse 55 is that the Israelites should be slave or servant to no one other than the Lord, which talks about that in verse 42 and also in verse 55. Verse 42, let me read that for you. For they are my servant, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves, or they shall or sold. 25. For to me the people of Israel are servant. They are my servant, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. God do not want the people to be servant, to be slave, temporarily, but to be slave. No, he want them to only serve him. That's it. He don't want to be slave to nobody, hold nothing to nobody, because he paid for them already. Okay? Paid for them already. When we talk about the redemption rights, even up to today, not about not the local judicial system, the local laws. Like, if you look in your local newspaper in your hometown, you will see the sheriff sales. The city is having auction at City Hall, toward the land or whatever they sell in people's property because they are unable to pay. Okay, just imagine, you go to an auction, a land auction at City Hall or the courtyard, whatever, and then you buy a piece of property from the city. You, the original owner, have the right to have up to 2 years to pay off that house that they lost. Go back to it. They have 2 years, work, make that money, pay off that house. But they will have to pay it with a percentage of interest toward the price of whatever the house was sold for. With that, to pay the person who bought the house off for their time. They bought it, so they have 2 years. You got 2 years to vacate the property, 2 years to say, okay, the house is really belong to me. Until that 2 years, the house is yours on paper, but it's not really yours because, the person could still try to fight it because it was a lien sale. They put a lien sale on your property. So you have 2 years to fight that lien and get your property back if you have the money to redeem it. So in a sense, even though your local laws still apply the laws of the Bible, but modify it for our time. They modify it. They take some, but it's still the same biblical principle. If as far as sales of land, you got time to pick it up. The Bible says you got 7 years to the jubilee to get your land. Whatever you gotta get. You got the land goes back to the original owner. Stuff like that. This remind me of the sales. That's always try to read your Bible as though how does it apply to my modern day way of life. Even though it is the Old Testament, but how does it apply to my modern way of life? What's going on right now around me, around your city, around your country? What's going on? How does it apply to us as a child of God living in today's times? Okay? May the glory of God be with you. May God bless you. May God protect you. May God keep you safe. May you have a great night. May you go to bed safe. May you get up safe. May you start your day right. In Jesus' name, may God be with you and your family. Amen. Peace be unto you and your house. Shalom.